Hi, good morning. Welcome to the New Mexico Economic Development Finance Team webinar. Thanks so much for taking time out of your day to join us this Thursday morning. This webinar is a part of our ongoing effort in partnership with our funded organization to provide education and awareness to the public about financing tools available for economic and community development and infrastructure projects. We host webinars every month, and we cover funding programs and funding topics. You can access all of our past webinars on our New Mexico Economic Development YouTube channel. All you have to do is go to YouTube, search New Mexico Economic Development, and you can see our finance team playlist. So we do webinars every month. So we have quite a library of interesting funding topics and highlighted funding programs, like, for example, New Markets Tax Credit, Bonds 101, we have Department of Transportation, Department of Environment. So you can find some interesting and helpful information there. So also, to stay up to date with our upcoming webinars that we have, you can, hopefully you're signed up for our New Mexico Economic Development email list, but you can also stay up to date. We post those on Facebook and on LinkedIn, so you can stay up to date with the topics that we have coming up each month. So to start off our 2019 series, we wanted to do an overview of our financing programs. We're excited to have Sarah Gutierrez and Mariah Samar, as well as Juan Torres and Joel Salas, joining us today to go over the programs that they manage. And I wanted to let everyone know that we are recording this session, so we will post this to YouTube. We'll also send out the link to all the registered participants. We also will send the PowerPoint out. We'll probably do that today or tomorrow. So if you do have to step off, no worries. And feel free to send this information out to anyone that you think might be interested. Also, I want to encourage you to ask any questions that you have. This is a great opportunity to reach out and really delve into these programs if you have questions. So if you do have questions, type them in the right-hand column. You see a gray box that says questions. Type your questions, and we will get to those at the end of the webinar. This is a quick agenda of what we'll be covering: Job Training Incentive Program, Office of Science and Tech funding programs, overview of our finance team, Lita, Credit and Enhancement Program, Fund It, and then we'll take questions. So here is Juan Torres.
Good morning and Happy New Year. My name is Juan Torres and I manage the Finance Development Team, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of the New Mexico Economic Development Department. More detailed information can be located on our website, which is gonm.biz, gonm.biz. And there's a lot more information there. The Economic Development Department's mission is to enhance and leverage the competitive environment to create jobs, develop a tax base, and provide incentives for business development. The Office of the Secretary is contained within a department which manages a number of different entities, including the Incubator Program. The Economic Development Division comprises the largest portion of the department, and as I mentioned, I manage the Finance Development Team. There's also a Community Business and Rural Development Team that is managed by Mark Roper. If you go to our website, you'll find a map that will show you the different regional representatives around the state and what counties they cover. We also have the Job Training Incentive Program, or JTIP, and Sarah Gutierrez is here, and she will be getting into much more detail about that program. The Main Street program is contained in our division, and that is a very exciting program that helps rural main streets across the state, as well as arts and cultural districts and frontier communities. And so, again, more information can be located on our website. We also have the Office of International Trade, you know, a lot of exciting things going on there with respect to federal STEP grants that could help offset the cost for potential exporters. And so Edward Herrera manages that group. And we have the Office of Science and Technology, and Mariah Tamar is here, and she will get into more detail of that. In addition, the Administrative Services Division is basically our accounting department, and they keep us honest and keep us paid up in our bills and all that. Additional offices, the attached Office of Military Planning is in our department, as well as the Film Division, the Border Authority, and the Spaceport Authority, and those are administratively attached agencies. Again, you can go to our website and get more information on those agencies, and basically that's it. Just to reiterate, again, the New Mexico Main Street program is a very popular program, helping to develop via capital outlay New Mexico established Main Street communities. It's a part of a national Main Street program that follows all of the required multi-points of interest. And to the right, you'll see our regional rep map that I mentioned. Again, that's located on our website. I think I can read it. Region 1 is Mr. Fred Shepard, and he manages that part of the state. Peter Mitchell manages Region 2. Mark Roper is the team leader, as I mentioned, and he also happens to manage Region 3. Region 4 is managed by Mr. Tim Hageman, and Region 5 is managed by Christine Logan, and Region 6 by Susan Russell. And that map is available on our website, so I would encourage you to go and find out more information there. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Juan. Now we have Sarah Gutierrez, who's going to talk about the Job Training Incentive Program.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I have quite a list of slides here that I'm going to go through, and I won't take over the whole presentation, but I will go through quickly and be happy to answer questions at the end. So my name is Sarah Gutierrez. I'm the manager of the JTIP team. Our goals align with the department's goals. We want to support the growth of economic-based businesses in New Mexico, assist New Mexico companies in their job creation and expansion, and also provide employment and skill development opportunities for our New Mexico residents. There are 3 programs that are funded out of the overall JTIP appropriation. JTIP is the main program, the Job Training Incentive Program, that offsets the cost of training new employees in newly created positions. We also have a smaller kind of sub-program called StepUp, where we can assist companies by offsetting the cost of upskills training for existing employees. And then there are 2 training programs that are also funded through the main JTIP appropriation. That is the Film Crew Advancement Program and the Pre-Employment Training Program. Those are administered out of the film office, and so today I'm just going to focus on JTIP and StepUp. And if you do have questions about those film training programs, you can contact Rochelle Bussey at the New Mexico Film Office, or I can connect you with her. So in a nutshell, JTIP can assist companies and the wage that the company is paying. We can also offset the cost of customized training at a higher education institution. So if there's a company that is looking for a piece of training to be delivered by a local community college on their behalf, we can help offset the cost of that up to $1,000 per trainee. And it's beneficial to know also that JTIP eligibility opens up eligibility for both the high wage job tax credit and the rural job tax credit. Just a little overview of what training is comprised of for JTIP. It can be on the job, it can be customized at the higher ed institution, or a combination of both. It's really the initial time on the job as that new trainee becomes proficient and reaches desired production levels. So, but from the time they're hired, they clock in, until the time that they complete the approved number of training hours working on the job is what's considered the training period for JTIP. And this is a chart that outlines the various reimbursement rates based on location. You can see it's broken out between urban, rural, and frontier. There are a couple of opportunities for an extra 5% bump if the wages align with the high wage job tax credit or the trainees meet certain criteria. There is a rule within JTIP that any JTIP trainee must have lived in New Mexico for at least one continuous year at some point in their lives. That rule was amended a couple of years ago to allow trainees who haven't been in New Mexico for at least 1 year but have been hired into high wage positions to be eligible. And so in those instances, the reimbursement rate is a flat rate at a reduced amount, as you can see there, beginning at 30% in urban and going up to 50% to frontier. Companies that qualify for JTIP are those that are economic based. They must also be expanding and financially viable. So manufacturers, certain startups and early stage companies, non-retail business service providers that bring in at least 50% of their revenues from a client base outside of the state, and then certain green industry are all possibly eligible for JTIP. Ineligible industries are traditional agriculture and farming, construction, extractive industries, and so on. You can see the list there. That includes retail. There are requirements for the jobs and the trainees, as well as the type of company that qualifies. And so the jobs are required to be at least full-time year-round and newly created. For us, at least 32 hours a week constitutes full-time. They must be directly related to production or delivery of the service, and reimbursement for paid interns may be eligible. The trainees themselves, as I mentioned, the 1-year residency requirement, all trainees are required to be New Mexico residents when they're in the program, and then there's the 1-year residency requirement as well. They're also required to be new hires to the company unless they've been previously employed through an internship. I'll talk a little bit about StepUp. As I mentioned, StepUp is really focused on enhancing the skills of existing workers, whereas JTIP is related to training newly hired candidates. So StepUp will reimburse the companies for direct training costs associated with that upskills training for their existing workforce. That training might be related to new equipment, technology processes. It could also be professional development, some training that would bring an employee from one level up to the next. We can also work with the New Mexico Manufacturing Extension Partnership on ISO certification training for companies at little or no cost. That training can be provided through a very varied providers, private and public, and it can be conducted on site at the business or at the training provider's facility. StepUp eligibility ties to JTIP. The company must be a JTIP eligible company to qualify for StepUp. They must also have been in business in New Mexico for at least 1 year. And in order to qualify, there's either a requirement for demonstration of recent capital investments in equipment or processes, or the trainee will be receiving a reasonable wage increase upon successful completion of the training. StepUp is limited to companies with 50 or fewer employees in urban areas, and it's available to all rural companies that qualify. And of course, the trainees are required to meet the residency requirements, and they have to have been employed by the company for at least 90 days. StepUp will reimburse 50 to 75% of all the eligible costs for that training, and those are listed here. They could include tuition, certification, licensing fees, instructional materials, instructor fees, and then in some cases, travel expenses for the trainees. Reimbursement is capped at $2,500 per trainee in any single training activity. They could participate in several different training activities, and the approval process follows the same guidelines as JTIP. JTIP staff works with companies to determine eligibility, to provide technical assistance through the application process, and get them to the board for their approval. And then once that happens, then we continue that technical assistance throughout the project period, which is 1 year. The board establishes program policy and makes all funding decisions on a monthly basis, the second Friday of every month. This is our team. I'm the program manager. We have Patrick Gannon, who is the marketing administrator and the main point of contact for companies who would like to find out if they're eligible and talk about, their expansion plans. He is the go-to guy. Jennifer Prada is the fiscal administrator, and she will assist companies throughout the project period with their administrative requirements. And Jennifer Myers is our compliance officer. And as I mentioned, Rochelle Bussey heads up the JTIP Film and Multimedia program in the film office. The board is comprised of various representatives of state agencies, the private sector, and organized labor. And those agencies are listed there. The application process is, the first thing is to contact EDD staff, either the regional representative or JTIP staff directly, and have a discussion about eligibility, review program guidelines, and set a plan for the application timing. There's an online application that is submitted 1 month prior to the board meeting, and then the company attends the board meeting and requests the funding. At that point, we will present the proposal to the board, and the company representatives are present to provide any additional information that they answer questions that they might have. The application consists of company financial and job information, including a 6-month hiring projection, job descriptions and training plans, and a training budget. Once the board approves the project, as I said, we will continue our technical assistance through the project period. The companies are then eligible to begin hiring and have 6 months to fill the positions. The training must be completed within 1 year of board approval, and the companies may submit their claims for reimbursement as the approved training hours are completed throughout that 1 year period. A unique aspect of JTIP reimbursement is it is a cash reimbursement to the company that goes right back into wherever they see is most appropriate, whether that be operations or equipment, etc. The company may reapply for JTIP as long as they continue to meet eligibility requirements and expand, creating new jobs. And as I said, we become very good friends with those companies during that 1 year project period. We work with them to make sure that they're on task, and we want them to be successful. Just a few statistics here to see our activity levels and funding. We have in FY18, we worked with 58 companies. You can see their average wages there, obligated about $15.6 million. 4.6 of that was to rural companies. And then to date, we've worked with 48 companies and obligated about $10.9 million. Really excited to point out that 6.5 of the 10.9 million obligated so far to date have been to rural communities and companies. And here is our contact information. Please don't hesitate to contact me or Patrick with any questions you might have about the program, eligibility, or if you would like us to come meet with a company or an industry organization or whatever your group might be, we're happy to come and discuss JTIP with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah. Now we have Mariah Tomar with Office of Science and Technology.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start by just giving you an overview of the Office of Science and Technology, which consists of the Research Collaborative, or TRC. This was enacted legislation in 2013, which consists of a board of members that include the 3 national laboratories, the 3 major research institutions, UNM, New Mexico State, and New Mexico Tech, the EDD Cabinet Secretary, and several governor-appointed members from the business community, be them venture capitalists, entrepreneurs, etc. And the TRC was established in order to create advanced technical centers in New Mexico and develop new IP and encourage business and help increase the number of jobs in the state. The next, program within the Office of Science and Technology is the Defense Industry Diversification Program. This came from the Office of Economic Adjustment. This is a federal grant that we applied for in the past, and we were able to develop a pilot and phase 1 study in which we were able to develop strategies to diversify and strengthen New Mexico's economy by helping New Mexico companies that are dependent on federal contracts diversify their business and increase their commercial revenue. So this might be another topic for a future webinar, but today I'll primarily talk about the innovation vouchers and SBIR matching grants. And I'd like to comment that the innovation vouchers come out of funding from the Research Collaborative. And I'd just like to point out that the Office of Science and Technology, as Juan mentioned earlier, falls in line with the EDD's department mission goals, which are to create jobs, develop the tax base, and provide a toolbox for business development. So I'll start by giving you just a brief overview of the New Mexico investment programs available to startup companies. As we know, there's a funding gap between startups and early stage funding. This is often termed the valley of death. And this is also the time in which companies are trying to commercialize their product. So I'll start by talking about startup and seed funding through our innovation vouchers, which is a small competitive grant. It's a micro grant of $2,000. So this is a funding that can help startups achieve their business development goals, and it goes directly to one of these approved programs listed here below. So it doesn't go directly to the business, but it goes to these programs in an effort to help you achieve, let's say, your goals. Let's say you need help paying the rent, for example, so that you can attend a conference or meet with an investor, for example. So these are the 3 qualifications in order to receive or apply for the innovation vouchers. The first and most important is the company must be a science or technology company associated with one of the programs mentioned in the previous slide. So this includes incubators, accelerators, and co-working spaces. Also, the company must be based in New Mexico, and businesses are limited to 1 award per calendar year with no more than 3 awards over the period of 5 years. So with that, I'll let you know that we are currently accepting applications for the spring fiscal year 19 innovation vouchers, and that deadline is Monday, February 18th at 5 p.m. At the end of this talk, I'll have my email and contact information if you have any questions. I'd also like to say that since 2016, the innovation voucher grant program has been successful. We've been able to issue 36 companies awards that have helped them, in turn, get follow-on funding and continue with their business. So the next type of funding I'd like to discuss is not a New Mexico-based funding. Instead, it's a federal grant called the Small Business Innovation Research Grant. And these are grants that are offered by the federal government in order to help individuals develop an idea. These are costs that are associated with research and development, with the hope that the research and development will lead to commercialization. So if you have an idea or you want to test the concept or get proof of concept, you can apply to one of these 11 agencies that have an SBIR program. We often get individuals that apply for our matching grant, which I'll cover in a few minutes. They apply for grants through the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, and NSF. And if you want more information about applying for a federal SBIR, the Arrowhead Center and New Mexico FAST program is a great resource for this. They can help you write this and proofread it so that you get funding. Or if in the past you've maybe applied for it and not received it, they can also help with that. But I'll just briefly go over how the federal SBIR process works. So there are 3 different phases of this process. There's the federal SBIR phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is the initial grant that helps pay for the costs associated with the feasibility and proof of concept of the idea or the project. And phase 2 pays up to $1 million or more for further research and development of your idea or concept. However, one thing to point out is that these federal SBIRs do not, their end goal is to help you get to commercialization, but these funds do not cover any type of non-R&D related expenses. So that's where the Office of Science and Tech tries to help offset these costs with the state matching grants. So this is funding that can help a company interested in commercializing while they have a federal SBIR. So for example, individuals that have a phase 1, are eligible to receive up to $25,000 from the state matching grant to help them meet their commercialization goals or business development goals. And individuals with a phase 2 can receive up to $50,000. So that's one of the good things about this program is that if you already have an existing federal SBIR, you are eligible for the state matching grant. And these matching grants, as I mentioned, can be used for business development and commercialization. This is a list of some of the activities and costs that individuals in the past have used the the SBIR matching awards for. And these are the eligibility requirements. So you must currently have either a phase 1 or phase 2 SBIR grant, an active one, at the time of applying for this. You must be headquartered in New Mexico and have more than 50% of your payroll in the state. And finally, you should not have any overdue tax or be involved in any kind of lawsuit. And most of your activities should be conducted in the state. So on the right, I have kind of the award and milestone overview of how it will work during this round. This is our 4th round of SBIR matching grants. So awards that are issued I would say in the next month or 2, those funds will have to be used by July 24th, 2019. And, we have these metrics where we require kind of a 3-month milestone report, a final report, and then 2 years after that, we take kind of an annual report just to see, to ensure that the program is working and that to ensure that we get future funding for this program. So we are accepting applications for the SBIR matching grants, and similar to the innovation vouchers, the deadline is Monday, February 18th, 5 p.m. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Also, I just wanted to point out that if you know of anyone that is interested in being an intern or would like to work here at the state with the Office of Science and Tech, I'd encourage you to reach out to me via my email address or my office phone. So with that, I will hand this over to Joanna.
Thanks, Mariah. And now we are going to get into the finance team's financial programs. And Joel Solis is going to do an overview of our team and the services that we provide.
Thanks, Joanna. So the finance development team, we're underneath the economic development division within the department, and our team is a team of 3 people. That includes Juan Torres, who's our finance director, as well as Joanna Nelson and myself as finance development specialists. So our team is somewhat unique as we have a hand in several programs in the department. And here on this slide, you can see a list of programs that we manage or help facilitate, which includes the Local Economic Development Act, Fund It, the Credit Enhancement Program, New Markets Tax Credits, as well as the more recent Opportunity Zones, and so on. But on top of these programs, what might not be known as well is that our team also offers a number of different services. We are here to work hand in hand with New Mexico companies and can assist in things like financial packaging, review or interpretation of company financial statements, financial analysis and client consultation, tax incentive analysis, and provide financial resource assistance. So based on a one-on-one business call or a face-to-face meeting at our office or at your location, our team can produce a free, customized analysis of the incentives and state programs that will work for your company. Navigating through different programs and financing options, it could get daunting at times or be complex. You're not aware if you're getting everything you need, and we're here and available to help if needed. And I do want to note that these services aren't limited to any particular industry, and that we can assist in anything from, say, a technology commercialization company to business, retail, and service business. If you are interested in any of these services, please feel free to contact us. We could help you move in the right direction, whether that's pointing out specific programs you're eligible for or determining what financing options that may be available for your company's situation. And with that brief overview, I'm going to pass on the torch to Juan Torres to speak about one of our bigger programs that I mentioned, Lita.
Thank you, Joel. Lots of information here. So again, I just want to remind everybody that this is being recorded. So, don't drive off the side of the road because you don't get a piece of information. So the Local Economic Development Act, also known as Lita. So the Economic Development Department is allowed to provide funding through local governments to businesses that are expanding or considering relocating. The businesses in question are what we call qualified entities, and that is manufacturers or, as Sarah pointed out, non-retail service providers that are what we know as economic-based companies, and that they generate more than 50% of their revenue from outside of the state. The logic is that this outside funding will stimulate economic development and produces public benefits. That's why we are allowed to use these public dollars in support of these activities. People would tend to talk about a part of our Constitution is called the Anti-Donation Clause. So the Lita Act is what enables our department and our team to provide these funds to the businesses by way of the communities. We target projects with all facets, of all types of projects, companies that are expanding or relocating. The significant important details are they have to be expanding, they have to be providing some sort of capital for that expansion. There should be job creation, and those are the components that we look at. So again, the projects need to demonstrate that they do provide a significant community impact and that they have community support. And that is why we structure these deals through the local government, so that we can work hand in hand with the local governments to try to help them to meet their targeted industries and to incentivize the activities that are important to them. We try to concentrate on rural and underserved areas of New Mexico. I think historically, over the last 4 years, we've demonstrated anything from all the way up to 50% and a low of perhaps 30% of our projects being in rural areas. So that is a very important aspect of our program. We also target not just rural, but underserved areas as well. And underserved areas could be frontier communities, tribal communities, and highly distressed communities. So in each of those categories, we will give additional consideration when it comes to funding. Part of what we try to do is to help increase wages and to incentivize job creation. And that goes hand in hand with all of the programs that we've been talking about today. We do require that there is some capital investment. We like to see it be significant. We have legislative goals of metrics in terms of leverage, and currently, I think we are at 12 to 1, so we have to leverage 12 times the private dollars for every one public dollar that we provide in Lita, and that is, of course, an average. Finally, but not least important, is environmental sustainable outcomes. So we are endeavoring to take those projects into considerations that have environmental minimum impacts, I guess I would put it, or that have a positive impact on the environment. Just a quick note about the Lita program as such has been funded at approximately $50 million per year, or I should say we've maintained a funding of $50 million per year over the last several years. And I think we've been so successful in our metrics and our goals that the new governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, has requested that from the legislature that we receive $75 million for Lita funding. And if your communities or your projects, if these are important things, I would encourage you to contact your legislature and let them know how important this might be. Currently, there's I guess a good news, bad news. We spent all the money we got this last year. So the $50 million is all allocated and essentially spent. So we desperately need this new allocation of $75 million from the legislature, and we look forward to considering projects in your communities, wherever that may be. I'd go a little bit into the deeper dive on a qualifying entity. And again, I mentioned manufacturing specifically is a qualified entity. And, you know, people often ask me, why is that? Why are manufacturers qualified entities by definition? And the answer is fairly simple. Manufacturers buy raw goods, they convert those goods, they hire people. At each stage of the conversion, value is added to those goods. And so they bring in these economic base dollars by virtue of their activities. So they are, by definition, an economic-based company. We also take into account, again, non-retail service providers, and we utilize the JTIP incentive program definitions to help guide our decisions on what is a qualified entity. In general terms, you know, any industry for manufacturing, processing, assembling of agricultural or manufactured products. So we do breweries, we do value-added agriculture, we do all sorts of things that can enhance a community. And again, the technical definition of a entity being a corporation, LLC, partnership, joint venture, association, or any other person as defined by law. So that is a qualified entity, and I think that, again, in general terms, if you have any questions about, am I a qualified entity or is this a qualified entity, feel free to contact me or Joanna or Joel, and we're happy to walk through the processes. But again, when we're considering Lita projects, we're talking about a qualified entity that is either expanding or relocating somewhere in New Mexico that's going to add jobs and will have some amount of capital investment in the process. Those are the key takeaways for Lita projects.
Great, thanks, Juan. Now, I'm going to get into one of our relatively newer programs called the Credit Enhancement Program. My name is Joanna Nelson, and I'm a financial development specialist in the finance team. This program was developed in response to some of the challenges that business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs face when attempting to get a loan. We know from firsthand experience and direct feedback that one of the biggest setbacks in small business lending is the lack of sufficient collateral or lack of adequate credit from business owners. So when we surveyed lenders in New Mexico to understand what was going on in the commercial capital environment in New Mexico, we heard an interesting quote from one of the lenders that relayed, you know, they heard a lot that business owners couldn't get loans because of access to capital. This issue of, you hear a lot that businesses can't get business loans because they can't access capital, but the lender said, you know, it's not an issue of access to capital. We have lots of capital. We want to give out loans. We're dying to make loans, but we have a lack of bankable projects due to lack of collateral and lack of credit. So that's where this program can fit in. Because we all know that startups or service industry businesses don't have a lot of collateral on hand. The collateral that they do have, a bank might not be willing to recognize 100%. So an example might be that a business is trying to get a loan for $100,000. They might have some office equipment, vehicles, and maybe the lender would only recognize 60% of those items. So therefore, the lender wouldn't be able to do the entire deal. And that's where we can come in with this program. Our program allows us to fill the gap in collateral. So if a bank is only willing to recognize 60% of a $100,000 loan, we could come in with this program and purchase a CD for $40,000 that would sit in the lending institution to cover the gap in that deal, so that the bank would be more willing to participate and do the deal for $100,000. So we essentially, this program allows us to participate in these types of business loans that have these gaps. We purchase a CD, and that CD can help securitize the loan. We can participate up to 50% of the principal value, or up to $250,000. And this is contingent on meeting particular guidelines that we have. This program is attempting to get capital out into underserved markets. That means that the areas that traditionally have a harder time accessing and obtaining loans, this program is hopefully here to help serve. So that means rural businesses, what we're calling socially disadvantaged groups. We're targeting women business owners, we're targeting veterans. So those are qualifiers that help the business get to this maximum participation that we're allowed to participate with, this 50% or the $250,000. So the exciting thing about this program is that we're not limited to manufacturers, we're not limited to businesses that are economic based. This program is available to startups, it's available to any type of industry. So we're really excited about it. The process is really simple. A lender would enroll in the program. The lender and borrower submit an application to us. That application is reviewed by our NMEDD review team. Then the lender underwrites the loan. The NMEDD funds the CD to collateralize the loan. And so one of the points that lenders are apt to point out is that sometimes there's hesitation in participating with a government program because there could be time lags or time delays. So we're completely aware of that fact, and we have streamlined this process, and the lender can get a decision from us within 5 days, and the process is very quick. So the lender can get that CD and make the deal with the borrower. So if you are interested in this program, feel free to go to our website. All of the documents that are needed to apply for a lender and a borrower are on the website, and I'll include a live link on this PowerPoint when we send it out so you can access this. Because this is a relatively new program, we need help in getting the word out to lenders in your area and to businesses in your area as well. For 2018, we helped 6 businesses, and we participated for an amount of $425,000. That's how much we purchased in CDs. And really exciting results. Those businesses created 133 jobs. So we're looking forward to the new year and doing more deals and helping more businesses. One of the other programs that we manage under the finance team is a program called Fund It. And although this program does not have direct money to lend out, it is very much involved in helping to fund projects. These projects that Fund It deals with are more on the community side. So these are economic development, community development, and infrastructure projects. This is an informal group that meets quarterly to discuss projects, and it acts as a platform. It acts as like a brainstorming platform or a Shark Tank type of scenario where communities can present their projects to this group of funders and get feedback directly from the funders if their projects are eligible for their programs, or they can be connected to other programs that they might not be aware of. So it's a fantastic resource for communities to use when they do have projects, but they don't know how they're going to fund them. So if you are interested in participating in Fund It, we have the application online that you can apply, you can use directly, and our next meeting is in March. So here are all the contacts for the finance team, for Juan, Joel, and myself, and you can access directly our finance team website that has links to all of this information. So right now we're going to take questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the box, and I see that we have some, so I'm going to go ahead and read them out. So the first question is, what's the channel I should use on YouTube? So if you do want to access these previous webinars that we have conducted, go to YouTube and search New Mexico Economic Development Department, and you will access our channel. And the playlist that has these webinars is under the finance team. And when I send out the link to the information, you can have this. You'll have the direct link to the YouTube. Let's see. And let's see. We have a question about Lita, and it said, when should we anticipate that funding will be replenished to Lita? Speaking to, we are in the middle of the legislative session. So Juan, do you want to kind of give people an update on the ask and what we're seeing?
Thank you for that question, Rich. I'm trying to read the rest of the question here. So, I mean, it goes on to say, when approved, how far should we forecast? It's a nice long question. Lita funding is currently depleted. So I think in general terms, and I can get the gist of your question. So as I mentioned before, all the funds we have are encumbered and allocated. If any of those projects should not go forward, then those funds would be made available. So it's important that if you have a project that is on the horizon or even very close, that you contact us so we can have a conversation about that project. Specifically, our request is for $75 million, drop in the bucket compared to $1 billion surplus. So I think it's money well spent. If the legislature were kind enough to give us those funds that we requested, they would be available to us starting July 1st of 2019. But again, I wouldn't wait until then. If you have a viable project with a qualified entity that's expanding and creating jobs, I would encourage you to contact our office and get it started. In terms of the rest of the question, I think Rich is asking about the process for approval and the timelines for that. The Lita approval process is a process whereby we collect some basic project information. And again, you could work with your regional representatives or you can work directly with the finance team. But we will collect the information such as what company it is, what industry, how many jobs they're creating, is this a targeted industry for the community, how much capital investment are they making, and how much the request is. And so getting that basic information started, we'll get the conversation started. We'll require additional documentation. So usually that involves the most recent 3 years financials. If it's a startup, 3 years of pro forma, although I have to emphasize that startups have a pretty high hurdle to cross as opposed to established companies. And this is all, of course, in support of our fiduciary responsibilities to being good stewards of public dollars. Once we have collected all the information and we have all the questions answered, we will present that information to our secretary, Alicia Keys, not the singer, and she will make a decision. She may ask more questions. She may bring the governor in. Again, this is a very streamlined process where the governor works directly with the cabinet secretary, and they will make a decision based on staff recommendations. Once the secretary and the governor have made a decision on a project, then we will go forward with the public process. And so it was one part that I had left out, which is once we come to agreement, there'll be a series of documents that are drafted. A project participation agreement is essentially a contract between the local fiscal agent or government and the project or the qualified entity. And that contract will contain all of the aspects of the project, what we will call the scope of work, if you will. And that includes everything that I've discussed, job creation, capital investment, and any other identified public benefits. A similar or an exact duplicate of that document is created called the Intergovernmental Agreement. That's between the state and the fiscal agent. And those two documents, along with a document that identifies the security for securitizing that award, are exhibits to an ordinance that is passed at the local level. And so what drives that is the local process. Some communities can get things done in 45 days. Some could get it done in 90 days. Some take 120 days. So that all depends. But once a decision is made, those documents are drafted, and then we enter into a public process that ends with a formal ordinance being adopted. And that's pretty much it. I don't want to go on any further, but if you have any other questions, feel free to contact me directly.
Thanks, Juan. We had a question come in that said, what is the rural job tax credit? Before I throw that out to the people here, I just would like to say that we didn't get into the tax credits that our department manages, but that is a service that the finance team provides. Is if you have a company or if you are a company and you're interested in the tax credits that are available to you, we can perform an incentive analysis. So that is a free service that we offer. So anyone want to take the rural job tax credit explanation?
Go ahead. Well, the rural job tax credit is inexorably connected to the job training incentive program. And it has, in the shortest aspect of it, you have to be eligible or in the job training incentive program, and eligibility is determined by the program manager. And once that is established, you can request, it's a $1,000 credit per qualified job, and you can claim that credit for up to 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's a way to incentivize the businesses that are in rural communities. And so again, you're either in the job training incentive program or you are qualified. Did I get it all?
Yes, thank you, Juan. It's actually can be claimed for 4 years and can be applied against your gross receipts, corporate income, or personal income taxes. So could be a benefit to rural companies. And I would encourage you to reach out to either the finance team directly or to your regional rep, because they are well versed in the ins and outs of all of the tax credits related to economic development and job creation.
So I see there's a question about the deadline for Lita, and there is no deadline. It's open on a rolling basis. So feel free to submit projects or contact us, and we can evaluate those. And again, if there is no funding, then we put you into the queue, and then when the next funding becomes available, we'll bring those projects forward. So it is open on a rolling basis. I see that the question, and I'm trying to understand, do other states have programs these programs that have been tested and successful, and what are the sources of revenue that fund these programs? So in general terms, the tax credits are funded through the legislature of New Mexico. Special appropriations are made to fund the Lita program. Specifically, the tax credits, again, are funded through the legislature. In some cases, we have been very successful in getting other funds. So, for instance, the Rural Efficient Business Program is a very successful program that was funded through a grant that Joanna Nelson applied for and received, and that's a partnership with the USDA and our state's Energy and Minerals Department. With regards to the Credit Enhancement Program and partially the SBIR matching grant program in the past, those funds came from a Department of the Treasury program called the State Small Business Credit Initiative, where the state received $13 million, and we were allowed to repurpose those funds as they recycled through that program. So a wide variety of different sources. And we also work with communities on national grants through the Environmental Protection Agency as well as the Economic Development Administration.
Great, thank you. We had one final question, and it says, are there any non-dilutive grants available from the state for biotech startups? And also, is there any aid available to access dilutive funding for biotech startups in New Mexico?
I don't think so, if I understand non-dilutive being non-equity type of investments. I think that that's strictly limited to the federal SBIR program with respect to proof of concept and trying to get your projects off the ground. I know there's a couple of initiatives in New Mexico for bio activities, but there currently are no, I guess you would be looking for operating capital for those projects, or kind of seed startup that doesn't dilute your equity. But we're, through our Office of Science and Technology, we're more than happy to try to work with you to figure out if there are other sources that we might not be aware of.
Great, thanks. And we'll follow up with you, Steve. I think there's an incubator in Albuquerque that we can connect you with as well that does offer dilutive.
Non-dilutive.
Well, they want to know if there is one that does purchase equity, and there is one.
Oh, yeah.
In Albuquerque. The Bioscience.
The Bioscience Center?
In possibly? Albuquerque by Stuart Rose.
Oh, yes, it's the Bioscience Center.
Yeah, so we'll connect you with them. But that concludes the questions. Thanks so much. And if you have any further questions, feel free to follow up with us. Just wanted to touch on some upcoming events that we do have. Juan mentioned the Rural Efficient Business Program. This is the last workshop that we'll be hosting, and that will be March 19th, coming up in Gallup. This is an opportunity for businesses that are interested in reducing their energy consumption or to look at where their money is being spent in terms of their utilities and a way to conserve that. That's a free service that we are offering from our engineers at Energy, Minerals, Natural Resources. And
so watch for, we're going to be retooling that program in the future. And we've actually got one scheduled in Cibola in February, but we will be retooling that program to focus more on financial efficiency and workforce efficiencies, and so hopefully making those workshops a little shorter, a little more directly applicable, and then a shorter conversation about the energy component. So just watch for that going forward. Sorry.
Great. And then our funded meeting will be March 26th. We'll be meeting in Albuquerque. There's the link to apply. Cutoff for applications is March 8th. Our next webinar will be featuring the New Mexico Tourism Department. They'll be talking about the funding programs that they have. That'll be February 28th. And just so you know, the webinars are following a schedule of the last Thursday of each month at 10 a.m., so you can keep that on your radar. And then we've provided the link that you can get all the documents that you need to from our credit enhancement program or find out more information. So I would like to thank everyone for your time again, and thank Sarah and Juan and Mariah and Joel for their time and sharing their information about their programs. And we look forward to connecting with you to help deploy these programs and this funding out in your community. So thanks so much, and we'll see you soon and at the next webinar.
Bye-bye.
Bye.